The idea was, well, he was associated with being an inveterate couch surfer who would, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly he would clean out the couches of change. So we use the term morgiling to describe cleaning the change out from between the couch cushions. So anyway, I was morgiling today, and I brought up more than 15 bucks in just change, nickels, pennies. Anyway, this is the bat soup on the quarters. Let me get back on track here. How did I get lost here? I'm looking at a picture here. Oh yeah, so now they're selling bat-shaped pizzas. I was talking about the bat quarters, that's right. So they put bat on the quarters, and I'm thinking, okay, wait, you're putting bat soup on the back of the quarters for 2020? That's in poor taste. Suggestive of foreknowledge. But now we have this. We have bat-shaped pizzas coming out of Little Caesars. Lickety Split says bat symbolism is the hanged man, is the Odin Jesus symbolism. Okay, that's interesting. You know who was hanging upside down was 50 Cent. Zareth the Alchemist says, I go through the couch at least once a year just out of curiosity. It's like I tip myself. Right, right. But now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wait, a bat-shaped pizza, and we have COVID coming out, and the pepperonis look like COVIDs. And now AIDS is the thing, the AIDS variant. They should make an AIDS pizza. You just shape it like a monkey? Is that where it came from? Yeah, 50 Cent was doing the hanged man at the halftime show. I had a caller the other day, a slave rescue hound, suggesting that 50 Cent is not a real person, but is a role that is actually, it's Mike Tyson in a mask. And he does look masky, and it's not outside 100%, unless you look at the pictures of the two of them hanging out together, but that's not always evidence. I mean, it is really trippy what you'll find. Like, for example, Justin Bieber and The Weeknd, like the caller just mentioned. You would think, oh no, that debunks itself. These guys have obviously spent time together. I mean, sure, they say they share girlfriends and wardrobe, but if you look, when you search for Justin Bieber and The Weeknd, you do find a picture of them, the very first thing that shows up. So the very first photo is The Weeknd hanging out with Justin Bieber. So you would say, oh, this debunks it, right? No. It turns out it's a fake photo, but they don't tell you that. The photo's popular. It's one of the top search results for that. But if you dig into this photo, you find that it was photoshopped. That some guy, some fan put it together, just some sort of fanfic, just kind of like, oh, this would be cool. And then you're like, well, now it's going to be harder to see the truth here. But that's how they roll. What also gives it away, if you compare Bella Hadid, that would be the girlfriend or former girlfriend of The Weeknd, to Hailey Bieber, the wife of Justin Bieber, yeah, it's the same chick, just wears hair dye and a skin toner and contacts. But yes, overlapping everything. There's a lot of interesting coding here too. Justin Bieber, JB, the black and the white pillars, The Weeknd. You could say that means or symbolizes Saturday, Sunday, Saturn, Sun. Again, the black and white poles. The closest luminary, the sun, the furthest, the Saturn, bringer of darkness, the white and the black. JB, Joaz Bacon, Boaz and Jacob, the B and the J on the pillars. It's the duality. And then you have the name Abel, like Cain and Abel. And Abel last year at the Super Bowl came out with the head wound, of all things. And if you think about it, a head wound, Abel, Cain and Abel, there's something of a story here, which made me think that maybe they're going to kill off The Weeknd. So Cain will slay Abel. Maybe there's some kind of a story there. And there's actually quite a lot in The Weeknd's videos that reference Stanley Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut. Look at this poster. This poster has a woman with a toddler, and she's breastfeeding a baby, and it says, Future or climate killer? Translation here, future or climate killer. So your baby is a climate killer. Worse than a COVID. Although that's a contradiction if you really think about it. So they're constantly about, oh, we got to get rid of the COVID. We got to make everybody safe. Oh, but the baby is a climate killer. Okay, so then why don't we just let the COVID be the climate killer killer? Just let it go. Why would you vaccinate against the climate killer's killer? It's good for the environment. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Any predictions or expectations for the Taco Tuesday of all Taco Tuesdays tomorrow?
Hey, hey, this is Art of Thinking Out Loud, Cincinnati.
Oh, what's up? Art of Thinking Out Loud, Cincinnati. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, my bad. I'm trying to get situated here, and I just wanted to let everybody know my smoke alarm is still making noises.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was looking at, I was buying batteries for a mouse, and I was like, man, I should get a 9 volt and send it to Cincinnati.
But yeah, I was just like listening to you talk about like Justin and the Weekend again, and just things like that. And what I was gonna say was this: I was listening to like a couple recent interviews, and something I noticed is this: like the interviews were with different Hollywood like actors, actresses, and what they were kind of getting at was the basic point of it is that when they ask like actors, you know, like what have you been up to? Like when you see certain actors that you haven't seen in a while, I've come to this conclusion: these actors are getting work by playing multiple characters. And I think I've really nailed this down because tonight I was watching something, and there was a character, a guy on there that was married to a girl. The show, these were like supposed to be regular people, but they were going in for like a surgical procedure or whatever. But the guy that was playing, who I'll say was playing this girl's husband, because it was supposed to be a real couple, he sounded exactly like Tyler Perry, and he had the build of Tyler Perry, the same facial shape. And I remember when I was talking to you like I think it was like a while back when I told you that there was a picture of Tyler Perry, and he's standing with, it's one of those judges, with the judge who used to be on divorce court. Now she's a woman she's a real small woman, and now we've seen Tyler Perry in different situations. We know what this man looks like, but the person that's standing next to this woman, his body shape is different, and the head is like, it's slightly bigger. It's noticeably bigger. And I've seen that in a lot of recent celebrities, like, just watching television, just not even anything like in particular. You'll notice that it's like, okay, with the photos of like Tyler Perry, if you go through multiple photos of him in different situations with different people, not just photos of him by himself, but like photos of him standing with other celebrities, you'll notice his head size changes and the body shape changes. And this is why I think that a lot of these actors are playing multiple characters, sometimes of just regular people on television. It's almost like practice on society.
Well, we're talking about spycraft, and so when you take the big movie screen out of the picture and their fame, you're dealing with people, influence agents, and so just because they're
Hmm.
not on the movie screen, we shouldn't rule out the idea that it's not just another character, and that the person you know as Tom Cruise is actually some guy playing Tom Cruise who's a famous actor. But it's that deep. And the fact that he's tied in with this these other psyops and some of these other actors just suggests that, yeah, you're looking at more than just an entertainer with the functions they play. And it wouldn't surprise me. The technology's there. The actor you mentioned, Tyler Perry, he's deep in the deep fake industry, portraying
Yeah,
multiple roles.
oh yeah, Tyler Perry. I was watching recently where they were showing a tour of his establishment, which happens to be 330 acres. You know, maybe even more now because he mentioned in it that he was trying to buy a couple more acres or whatever, which makes me think 333 acres. But on this facility, he has a replica of the White House that he says is an 85%, complete. It's almost exactly like the White House. And what it brought me to was when we see those interviews on the news where you hear planes flying over, where you hear construction. During the time when they were showing him filming this tour, they were doing construction in the other rooms because with each of these buildings that he had like on the property that he uses for different television shows, each side of the building is a different like house for another television show. So he kept making references to we can walk around this house and be in a whole nother world and just put other characters. And when I was looking at that White House scenario, like I said, when we were hearing those planes flying over, when the woman was talking, and when we were hearing the construction, I think they were at Tyler Perry's studio because he has the most complete replica of the White House, he said, in America.
Yeah, and you're referring to that clip where a plane flew over uh, pretty
A
close to where
plane
the,
flew over.
yeah, a plane and Jen Psaki. Yeah, so you're right. And that would make more sense to me than anything. I mean, they can
And
with
then,
yeah,
and I'm going to tell you something else. On his facility, each one of he has all these trailers and he put the name of different top black actors on there. Like you have Wesley Snipes, Halle Berry, Denzel Washington, and they're all each private sound rooms. Like they're that person's private place that they can record and do movies or whatever. And what I was thinking was this: we see like Denzel's Washington's son starting to kind of become popular now. At the same time, Denzel's name is becoming popular once again. There are a lot of men. His son has kind of a common look, I would say. So I'll see characters on different things like commercials everywhere, and I believe his son is playing multiple characters. I believe his son is playing athletes because his son played an athlete on a show on television, and there's also several athletes that kind of like favor him. They look kind of masky. I think that we're looking at like major stagecraft when we were talking about how sports is now sports entertainment, where it can be
yes,
manipulated legally.
yes, which they have put that in that category. And when you say masky, for people who aren't familiar, we use the word masky to describe people who look like they might actually be wearing hyper realistic synthetic faces that are just uh, so thin that you wouldn't know it's a mask, or they're cosmetically adjusted so they look like somebody else. And we use the word masky because we're talking about stagecraft, not digital filters. And the public hears deep fake, they think digital filter. And I think, no, we're talking about a technology that's been used for decades. And
And
yeah, yeah, masking.
yeah, I believe, and I'm gonna tell you, I think that with like when I was telling you about the Reface app and with the deepfake technology, I think, like I said, a lot of these apps are preparing us and just kind of soft walking us into what's to come. I think we're gonna start. Well, I won't say gonna start seeing with the Super Bowl commercials. Like I said, with LeBron, his commercial, I think it was kind of a soft introduction of our meta reality, where they can basically create a scenario. I don't even think the virtual this. I think meta, the way it's being sold to us, it's being sold to us in a package, because as long as they can keep you in a package mode, like I say, you put on these glasses and you go into the virtual world. I think that's the way they keep you boxed in. I believe this meta shit is the world you're living in now through mainstream media. I think they're creating scenarios. Some of the stuff that we're going to see on the news in the coming days with this whole 2222, everything, is, I think, and with the Russia situation, I think what you're going to see is some of the things that we're going to see on the news, like some of the attacks or whatever. I don't think will even have actually happened. I think it'll just be visual manipulation.
Yeah, that's
Because,
yeah, if everybody's
I
getting their
mean, think
info from the
about it.
screen, like that's how 9/11 was. The only images
It's
you
the,
have of the planes hitting the building was through the screen.
and that's the whole thing. Like I said, we have no way to basically test it. We have no way to basically, you can only go by what you're told, and they know that most of the public is pretty much, like I said, they're numb. They're Everybody is pretty much consensus based followers. Like if it says it in the mainstream media, the religion of mainstream media, everybody follows it to at least some degree. And something else I found out recently too was, do you know that most television reporters are actors? Not just because we say they're actors. If you look on most of their resumes, there's acting. And when I looked up what it takes to be like a media personality and everything, part of that whole training is you have to basically you're better fitted for it if you have some type of acting, some type of training. Like if you've done classical theater, if you've done something like that, you'll be probably picked more ahead of like somebody else with the same qualifications too. But if you have acting credentials,
Right. I think you're right about that 100% because
I'm
uh,
telling you,
I
if you look up your local newscasters, like just the people in the town that you're in, and then look up ones in other cities, a lot of them has acting. I'll tell you this. I'll put it to you like this: at least 60 plus or better have acting on their credentials.
I agree with that. And I think there's a lot of crossover between the skill set that it requires to be a good actor and that which is required to be a good spy, an embedded agent. I think
Hmm.
spycraft and stagecraft are essentially one and the same, but spycraft is done on the world stage as opposed to the theater stage. And I've looked at a few different reporters who are, looking at, like, for one I was looking at in particular, just looking at her resume, I'm like, wow, you were at the Thousand Oaks PSYOP, you're at the Vegas PSYOP, you're at this PSYOP, so you're probably lying here. So you can just see
And
that
why do you
it's the
win
same
Emmys?
ones.
And why do they win Emmys?
Right, exactly. Why do they win Emmys? That's a great question
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Why do they win Emmys? It's like, okay, you win an Emmy. Like I said, we ask logical questions, and when you ask those logical questions, they look at you and they give you an answer like, oh, because of reporting. Why are you giving Emmys for reporting? That
Yep.
makes no sense.
I'm
Then
glad you
you
brought
should
this
give
up.
an Emmy for
Actors,
playing football.
yeah, because we're talking about the trust that people have placed in media has turned them into faithful sheep of this new high-tech religion. And we are the ones who are being objective enough to even ask these questions. And when you find even some of these more high-profile alt media types like Candace Owen, always getting headlines, you think she's a champion of the people, and it's like, well, no, She was an actress who failed and got hired to do
Yeah.
this gig because she can read lines.
And the thing is, I'm gonna tell you, like people like Candace Owens. I think what Candace Owens is when I ask people all the time, have you ever read the book COINTELPRO? If you've read the book COINTELPRO, then you, especially for the black community, quote unquote, when we see these people step onto the world stage and they seem to be either agitators or they're just too pro-black, always pushing this, pushing that, and then they kind of jump onto other agendas, political agendas. Those people are agents. Those people are. I mean, it's obvious, and it's like I don't think that. I don't think that the. I don't think that that we quite understand that it's like there is no discernment between actors, entertainers, and politicians. Like I said, lawyers, everybody. It's all one big cabal.
It is. It's a cliche that politics is show business for ugly people, but look at the crisis actors; they can't act. So I think we're looking at the widespread use of actors, but the very glossy, glitzy, glamorous ones of Hollywood, I think also serve as a red herring. So we don't see the actors all around us in their own capacities.
Right. I know something else I was going to ask you. Have you noticed that a lot of the radical women that they will show, like in politics, a lot of the women that you see, like you know, for from different countries and you know for different situations or whatever, a lot of these women appear to be transgender.
Um,
Some of these
Let me think about
some of
that.
these women, and that's not a shot at anybody or you know anything. It's just that when you look at certain people that are you could tell these people are characters because they look masky and they look like men you've seen before, maybe playing political figures or maybe actors. I can't think of the one woman's name, but it's like she used to be on TV all the
Okay,
time when this whole
I think I know one. I think I know one. And yeah,
and the one lady, the
it, it
big
it's
who's the one big lady named the LeBlanc or something. It just I'm trying to think. She was a health. There was one woman that she was like a health commissioner or something, and she looked like she was about 600 pounds.
Oh, that was Maggie the Block. And that's easy to remember because the name. You're like, oh, Maggie the Block. Like that's got to be some kind of a joke. And
I
then,
think,
yeah, I think that's one. And
and, and I can't think of the other woman's name or whatever, but I also think about okay, the woman that for me, I think about this: the woman that accused Bill Cosby.
okay, that was an interesting one. And I think it was Mag Bitter Truth who drew my attention to this. He was going through all of Bill Cosby's supposed victims. And it didn't fit the story that he was drugging women because a lot of them just looked, they didn't look like they were cis, whatever, women. I don't know
Right.
why they would do this unless the whole thing was a fake story. And then it leads me to think, well, or ask the question, what would be the purpose of faking such a story? And again, we're looking at psyop actors who are portraying evil characters and sometimes good characters. And I thought the story there might have been you're taking America's dad, like a figure like Cosby, and then turning him into this monster. And I think that's part of the Psywar as well, is the duality. And here's one here:
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell and Dr. Levin. I don't know if Dr. Rachel Levin and Mitch McConnell are the same. Now, I do think I'm 100% that Blasey Ford is Brett Kavanaugh. Now, that one's pretty obvious.
I mean, but you know what? But it's like people think that this is so far fetched, but we have to look back onto classical theater, Shakespeare. You know, Broadway. Look at what we look at as being the finer arts and the most esteemed of the arts. It's like when you get if you the more you the arts, Shakespeare especially. Come on, man. It's like we act like when you go back and you look at the pictures of like Parliament and you look at, you know, at the Romans and everything, they were always acting out. And and I did further research. The Romans used to do like acting out scenarios like war game scenarios where you would play out in different situations if this happened, kind of like training scenarios.
Okay, okay.
And I looked at that as like old school propagandist crisis acting training.
Well, who was the name of
It's
the
been
first?
going on forever.
Well, the first man to get the COVID vax. Do you remember his name? William Shakespeare.
It was
It was William Shakespeare in
really,
Warwickshire, the same place where William Shakespeare was. I mean, yeah, the World Stage Read, the Globe Theater, yeah, it's definitely a thing. So when we're talking about these
and then when I
characters
tell,
playing different roles, we're not talking about the identity group agenda. We're not talking about PC politics. We're talking about stagecraft at a very high level that the public has been blinded to, and you don't, you're taught not to recognize the nuance. And I think a lot of conspiracy theorists out there point to stuff like clones and reptiles and whatever, but I think
hmm
they're being given red herrings to distract them from this
right.
tech, from the true deep fake.
And that's why I think that like right now at the point that we are in history, we're at a point where, like I said, with the internet, we have too much access. It's just like when Bill Clinton, when they were gonna it was gonna be a lot of decentralization, and like the internet was gonna be more a social aspect and everything. He didn't want that to happen. He was one of those people pushing for that not to happen. I think because now we have everything. We have access to one another. We can constantly communicate and share this information and these ideas, this art, to where it's out of control, and that's why with these large scale situations that become that some people call false flags or whatever, but we know these are just world stage events that are set to change public perception. It's like you're looking at, like you'll take this whole, with the pandemic that happened and everything, with that whole scenario and going into the summer of like unrest and the George Floyd thing, while all that was going on, censorship was happening slowly in different aspects of like with cases coming up, and then they'll have entertainers happen with different little things. They took so much away from people while they were concentrated on these other events that were like basically being decoded right in front of them. And I think that that's part of it too. It's the fact that when these things happen, people like me, you in the chat, we start talking, we start making videos and decoding them to where, as they're going on, like you said, the stories about the cloning and the reptilians and everything like that, they throw out those stories so that you make people like us sound cartoonish.
Oh yeah, it's a tactic, and they're good at it. I mean, that whole book, Off the Edge, that I was going through earlier, it's 250
hmm
some pages, and I thought this was going to be a deep dive into the flat Earth subculture, and actually is quite shallow because I know the people that she interviewed more than she does. I've studied them deeper, and she missed all of it, and all she left the reader with was, oh, the flat earthers are represented by the rapping neo Nazi Eric Dubay. So now she just basically said flat earthers are Nazis. So it's a smear, and that's the best they can do. But it's just, it was so shallow, the coverage that she gave. But I'm looking at it as, well, all they can do is misrepresent and try to obfuscate so people don't look. And then, of course, then they don't take you seriously because, like, oh, these guys talking about NASA being a hoax are probably Nazis. That's the connection that they've made.
See, you know what? And that happens right at the time when we were just talking about Candace Owens. That happens right at the time, and this is why I think that, like I said, as they put out situations, we can decode them. And as I was saying when I called, like a little while back, we can time travel. We can go back and look at that NASA footage, and we can take 19, 60s and 70s and 80s, 90s logic and look at it now through a 2000 plus lens, and it doesn't add up. And it's like, with this happening, and like I said, we're not that small group of people just sitting in the corner. No, we're the general consensus that's asking questions. So now what you do is you take a figure like Candace Owens, and you do the same thing that you do with like Kyrie Irving. You get, except I think Kyrie Irving was a little bit more sincere with him, like questioning the flat Earth thing
Yeah,
and all of that.
he
But
was
I
far
think
more,
somebody like,
yeah, Kyrie was far more, I
right,
think, sincere, but you can see what they did.
right. But I think with Candace Owens, it's a thing where you now have commercials kind of making fun of the whole moon landing thing, and you have television shows and cartoons and memes and all of that. I think it got so far out of control that a part of getting it back guardrail is to now have one of these pseudo political figures, Candace Owens, throw something into it.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, I
that's
think
right. Candace
have
Owens
her
came out with the
right,
moon landing denial, and she's got this massive channel. So that's their way of damage control. It's like, oh, look, they took
right,
control of this leak. Let's get one of our big names, and now we can firmly associate moon landing denialism with
and
right-wing
wherever
extremism.
the right where however the public feels about her is how they will then associate questioning landing. It's like like you was just saying a second ago. You take anything that's associated with like flat Earth, and you start attaching dumb shit to it. Like you start attaching Nazis to it, and you start attaching like terrorism and other shit to it. It's like things that have nothing to do one nor the other, yet the public hears it all put in together, and they just and they kind of just associate it all as like one frame of mind. They think that if you question if the Earth is flat, that you probably agree with Nazis,
Well,
or they, or,
in many ways, they do. In fact, the media and stuff. I think you're right about this. It's all about fear. They serve as
hmm
like we're gonna bark and warn you when something bad's coming, like they're your guard dogs, which they're just not. And this Nazi smear is just very weak. I mean, if you really get down to it, I would even say that the Nazis were probably some of the original climate alarmists and radical environmentalists. So, if we wanted to stoop down to that level where calling everybody else Hitler is a way to win, you could argue that Greta Thunberg is basically Hitler, or literally Hitler.
hmm And you know what? I have a book I got years ago that's called "The Swiss, the Gold, and the Dead," and it talks about how how the Nazi machine was financed by the different financiers in the world. And when I go back and I read that book now, I got this book like back in the '90s when I think it was like in the late '90s or so, just picking up books. But when you go back and you read these books now, and knowing about how stagecraft operates on a larger scale, then you see that when these different hedge fund organizations and these different groups come along, that they're not just coming along just because they're wealthy groups and they just want to put money into this. No, they fund events. They fund world stage events. They stage wars. They stage situations that shift the economy and shift perspective. And I think that was what that was like a key factor that we had missing over time, is that we didn't really know that this was all like staged events. We thought that these were like real events.
Yes, and what you're
So
talking about here, and this is also cutting edge, because we're always looking at the present and the future, but retro auto hoaxing. Looking back, because
hmm
if they fake the news since we started paying attention in 2012 to crisis actors, well, then it's pretty safe to say that Sandy Hook wasn't where they started this. So you start going back, and it's like, wait a minute, how much fake news have I taken for granted as real? And
right,
most people take all of the news for granted. That's just their default position. And so going back, and this is why they try to make it look like if you question history, you're a Nazi. It's like, no, we're questioning
right.
the elite's interpretation of events, a highly curated interpretation. We're questioning that. And that's, yeah, retro auto hoaxing.
And I think what's crazy is the fact that, like, just doing this retro auto hoaxing, when you go back and you start looking over wars and you start looking over these big shooting events, like I'm talking about, not even the ones from like in the recent times, I would say like in the like the 90s and the 80s, but just going back to some of the ones, the historical ones, you have to start questioning even the ones that they don't have video footage of, just stuff that you've heard historically. When you start reading into the different accounts and you start hearing other characters come into it, and this person does this, some of those even sound like they were staged, and the
Yes.
public was just not supposed to find out about certain things. And I think that like that's why now you'll have movies and you'll have like interpretations come up on the anniversaries where people will start to add like other little tidbits to it now, because like I said, they know that we know more now because we have more access. So they know it's just like they can't feed you that same story because you're no longer 3 years old. You're 9 years old now. So they have to upgrade how they bullshit you.
Yeah, absolutely. PSYOP reinforcement, and the movies make it even realer. And John LeBon has a great article at johnlebon.com about Pearl Harbor and how much of what we're taught in the curriculum, the pictures that were shown, what the public is shown for Pearl Harbor as actual footage, most of it, if not all of it, is uh, recreated. And so we have this
hmm
perception, oh, I have memories of this footage, very drastic stuff. And then you see movies about it, and the movies, it's like supposed to be a faithful reproduction. So now you have an idea of what happened. And it's like you watched a movie about a movie. And this is the level they're
Right.
going to. Like now they're putting the film studio in the space station. So we're going deeper
Hold
and
up.
deeper.
And you know what's a modern example of watching a movie within a movie? Do you remember they did a movie called like the Battle for L.A. or something. It was about a UFO that was like flying over Los Angeles and out by the ocean, and the government supposedly was like shooting at this thing. This is actually it's in a lot of like these like UFO books and these conspiracy books and everything, and government files saying that they were shooting at this UFO and all of that. Now, and they actually made a movie about it featuring Rihanna and Neo and a couple other Hollywood characters. Now, I'm thinking this: if this was a real event, and the reason I say real event, it would be something historically noted. It would be something historically noted that, oh, they made a movie about this real event that happened, and it was a UFO did this, and they actually shot at one, and all of that. They claim it was based on like actual events, and they made a science fiction movie about it, but you never hear anybody speak about that. And another thing, I'm gonna tell you something. Not switching subjects, it's all on the same subject. Tupac, his mother, Afeni Shakur, went against the United States government, you hear me, the feds, for 157 charges, and she beat the government by herself in an 8-month trial. If you believe that, no lawyer talks about that. No law school talks about that. It's not noted as one of the greatest federal defeats ever. It was all staged.
Wow.
Because, I mean, think about that. And that's actually noted as something they say she beat the feds for 157 charges. But nowhere do you see, now that's what the news told us. But you see that nowhere legally.
Right, right. Okay,
Nowhere,
that's interesting. Okay, good point there.
nowhere is there on a, I was watching videos on the channel Industry Hoax, and
Good
they do a
channel,
lot of
good
deep dives.
channel. Yeah, Industry Hoax gets
Yeah,
it about weaponized
they do a
anthropology and
lot
all
of
of it.
deep dives into different stuff, and it's like when they were talking about that and was showing searches where you can't find any legal records of this. It was only what the media showed you, and they actually went to trial for 8 months and watched movies and just kind of walked around and talked to each other. There was no trial, and it makes me think about how we are right now with the Nipsey Hussle situation. We had a murder. We had a suspect. We had a situation, and we have nothing. It's
Oh,
all
oh,
acting.
yeah, that event, I mean, there was so much we can go into there, but yeah, I recall
Right,
noticing why is it that TMZ has interviewed far more witnesses than the LAPD? That the police
right.
were less informed than TMZ. That stood out to me. And
CNN.
really quick, the last caller brought this up, or some chatter brought this up. So now it's 222. Kanye's album Donda 2 for
Mm-hmm.
$200, too much money,
Right.
comes out today,
I'm glad you brought
and it
that
was
up.
produced
I'm
by
glad you.
Future, who has an album called
Yeah,
Pluto. So what do you think of this?
yeah, Oh yeah, Young Pluto. That's what I put that in the chat. Like Future has been calling himself Pluto for the last few years, and he also calls himself Hendrix. He calls himself Future Hendrix sometime, and I'm looking at that as with them having Future do Kanye's new project, and what it is he's doing stems where it's like for the $200 you basically buy the music file and you can adjust it to just hear the vocals or you can hear the bass line. You can basically EQ the music to how you want it, like if he sent you his files in the studio. So you will actually own the music. And what it does is it gives the artist a chance to make more money, but on a deeper level. I was thinking this. You have Kanye, who we know has been doing all these different rituals with the whole Burning Man ceremony that he did, because that's actually what I think it was kind of a continuation of. And
It was the same date,
and
yeah. But Kanye
it
burned
was the
himself
same
the
day.
anniversary of the usual Burning Man festivals they did 33 years previously.
And now I'm gonna tell you something else with Future. Future is one of those. Future is one of those top hip hop artists, those top mainstream artists that he's he's been like relevant for a decade, and it's like there's there's kind of a mystery to him in a sense, because even though he's a quote unquote street rapper, he doesn't do a lot of interviews, and it's like his music will go into some deep themes about like demons and about rituals and about stuff like that. And I think it goes over like a lot of people's head. He has a lot of videos themed around a lot of things, and it puts me in the mind that it's like he's one of these industry plants
Well,
that
Pluto,
set.
Underworld, there's got to be, and then the mystery and all that.
Yeah,
And hey, Jake
he
the
talks.
a-hole in the comment says, this dude's smoke alarm chirps every minute for the last few weeks and he doesn't notice. It's kind of funny because I was driving the other day and I didn't put on my seatbelt, and sometimes I just don't want to. And the little dinger's going
Right.
on, ding, ding, ding. And so
I'm so used to it.
the person next to me is
Yeah, I'm just used to
like
it.
I saw a meme today, and it said, you know, the guys who drive around and don't care when their seatbelt alarm is going off? Yeah, they're serial killers. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, no,
Hey,
I'm
I
just
guess I'm.
focused.
Yeah, it's like I mean, you just yeah, you get used to it after a while.
Exactly. No, we just have our focus. But anyway, no, it's all good. But no, hey, this info on future, very interesting because again, it's Pluto who invented or created the Kraken. And so for Pluto return happening today, and then all this Kraken stuff that we've had for the last couple of years, and the crack, the schism, Joe Biden giving out crack pipes, something is up.
And you know what else I just thought about? Know what else I just thought about? A future connection. Okay, future. Future used to go with Sierra, who's married to the NFL guy. I forget. He was like in the Super Bowl and everything like a couple years back. And they're like this big Christian couple. So they're always on these religious networks and everything, and they're pictured with the Obamas and with other people like with the T.D. Jakes and folks like that. And then you have Future, the duality. He's rapping about demons. Future has all these children with other women. And he calls himself Pluto, and he talks about he's from the underworld. I represent this and I'm this and that. I think it's a duality being played, like I said, right in front of us in society. He's working with Kanye. We know what Kanye is doing. I think that we're just watching actors and pieces being put together for different rituals that are just large scale stagecraft assemblies just being laid out right in front of us.
Yeah,
And
and
I
for
think they're getting,
that's
and I
probably
think they
a
tell us because, I was going to say, I think that the reason we see it is because it's just like with when we were talking about vampires. A vampire can't do anything to you until you invite it in. And it's like with symbolism, you'll never know what's going on in society until you're looking at symbols, because as long as you're just watching the surface or you're just reading the words, you'll never understand what's going on with like what's being manipulated right in front of your face. I think when they show us Future, Kanye, they show us these different events. And then I'm gonna tell you something. 9 times out of 10, this Future Kanye thing, something is gonna drop on a date symbolic to like something else happening, like with the whole Astro World situation. This Future Kanye thing is going to drop and it's going to be aligned with some type of big world event.
well, I do think that the coding here implies West World, Kanye West.
Right.
It
Hmm.
implies some, and then the destruction of the house. This is all very significant, and Kanye is a key player on the world stage when it comes to communicating these
And
symbols.
Kanye has called his home West World.
Has he? Okay,
He said that
okay.
in a rhyme a couple times. He said that in a rhyme a couple times. That's the reason I'm saying that I think with the whole Kanye Future thing and with the symbolism, like I said, with the when we were talking about how that's the same house pretty much in the Rust, scenario, and with other scenarios that you'll see like in other shows. I think it's all. I believe Kanye and Future and others are just aligned for the big world stage. I think that like with the Kanye and Future are kind of like the Super Bowl halftime show for the world
Well, this is going to
on the
be
entertainment side.
tomorrow then. So tomorrow's the day. Possibly the Kraken gets released. It's Hades. And, we have a flat solar system for the people who laugh at flat Earth. Your solar system is flat, with the exception of Pluto, which is inclined at an angle of 17 degrees. So it goes under. And so it's all symbolic. And for him associating himself with the underworld, and he's now tied in with Kanye and his record release, all super interesting. So I'll be
And
following
then
this
think about
tomorrow.
something.
Uh huh.
And then think about something real quick. Remember, they declassified Pluto as a planet a while back.
Yeah, that's right. Pluto invented in 1930 or so, or first noticed. But yeah, it's been a debate. Is it a planet? Is it not a planet? And now it's apparently a
Yeah, they
planet.
see. So yeah, it's a lot of correlations you can run with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to follow this tomorrow for sure. I'll be keeping an eye on this thing as it unfolds. There's no way it's a nothing burger, but I think maybe like what a couple
Right.
callers ago said, maybe it's the beginning of a new cycle, a new reset, or rather, the reset actually begins. But I don't know. Pluto, the dogs, Hades, and the Kraken, it's all too much. So, hey,
Oh, and I know some,
yeah,
just real quick, I know something else. 50 Cent he just started production on a movie about a comic book character that he's going to be doing. Somebody named Zero or something, but it's like this character is supposed to be the way he's going to work it is that it's a black character that he's a black character like a spy or something, and he's in disguise as a white man doing like some espionage, and then a situation happened. I think it's basically playing on the whole prosthetic masking and everything. Just with anytime I see people talking about changing faces, or people with like there's a movie on Netflix or something about a woman that she's a spy, and she was known to like disappear basically from like public sight, and it's about how these people are basically masters of like stagecraft, masters of I just think that a lot of the whole prosthetic masking and the technology, I think it's even beyond prosthetic masking sometime at this point. And I think that, tomorrow will probably be some big propaganda to start moving us in the direction of, seeing where they're going with it.
yeah, I think so too. I think the 1776 reoccurring tomorrow is also significant because I think what they've framed it as is that the freedom lovers, the ones who believe in private property, individual responsibility, individual immune systems, and self-defense, yeah, they are for 1776, whereas the control freaks, the commies, they're for the 1619, which is the Marxist revolution, bringing us back to 1619. So I think between 1619 and 1776, that's the that's the split that they've created here. And so tomorrow may be a highlight in that split. Maybe tomorrow, with 1776 being brought back in that sense. And it's also at 27 degrees Capricorn. So I kind of have my eyes out for anything with goats.
Yeah, see, I think they're gonna have to do something tomorrow, just because if they let tomorrow go by, it'll kind of be like a big opportunity going to waste. Because in certain situations, when we think something is going to happen on a certain day, they can kind of move it to another day. Like it can be 3/11, November the 3rd, and then it happens, March 11th. But I think on a day like tomorrow, there are too many correlations. There's too much symmetry. There are too many like alignments with different, that go across the board. They're going to do something tomorrow, some type of propaganda. They have to, because they have to, to give people somewhat of a show. It's Broadway, it's Shakespeare, it's the
Yeah.
world stage.
Look, at the craziest end of this thing, there's a whole lot of predictive programming and symbolism and storylines that have been put out there that would suggest go, but Yeah, anything's on the table. So we'll be watching. And
Right.
this again, Art of Thinking Out Loud. If you want to go ahead and leave your Twitter in the chat again, definitely. I have a lot more people now on Twitter getting engaged there, and it's a great place to source intel. And
Okay.
I follow you there,
Without a
so
doubt.
cool. All right. Well, hey, good talking to you again, and we'll catch up here. Probably. Hey, tomorrow I'll be live covering whatever goes on.
Without a doubt. All right, y'all take it easy.
Awesome. Thanks again for the call. All right, everyone. That's Art of Thinking Out Loud calling from Cincinnati. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover a few other things. Uh, God, there's so many. This. Oh, by the way, someone brought up celebrities and actors even playing different genders. This is supposedly General Flynn. Well, somebody suggested it was General Flynn. I see the resemblance. So they labeled this one LGBTQAnon. Hard to dispute, but highly doubtful. Although not outside of the realm of possibility. So, anyway, General Flynn, of course, being one of the main leaders of the Q movement. Clockwork 113 says, good call. Yep. Going through, Finbar says the chirp. Oh, yeah, the chirp. Somebody says here, I'm just picturing chirping penguins. Yeah, the fire alarm in the background is just a theme with that call. I mean, it just happens every time he calls in, and it's like, it's not even an annoyance. It's just kind of funny. It happens here too. And those things are just annoying. Same thing with the car. Like, I'll be driving and I don't have my belt on and the thing starts beeping. And to me, it's like a contest of wills. Like, I'm not going to let this alarm tell me what to do. And so I will drive for miles with the annoying ringing in my ear just to be, just out of spite, like, just to resist it. So I don't let, like, I don't imagine I'm going to fare well with a robot invasion. Am I going to let little robots tell me what to do? I don't think so. Let's see here. Let's continue. Oh, Maximilian says the Honda beeps are the worst. Yeah, I'm the type. I mean, I'll push the button to stop the beeping for 30 seconds. I just don't want to let it win. Okay, this is another article from Donnie Darkened. The Rise, the Wound, the Return of Donald Trump, a case for the biblical Antichrist. So just another thread from the same Twitter account. Again, if you're not on Twitter, I highly recommend it. Follow me and all the people that I retweet. So, Donald Trump, 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days after his birth, he was inaugurated. 7 months after this, the Great American Eclipse would occur on August 21st. That would divide the USA in half in a 7-year period. Is that Moonchild?